Oh.
All right, here, hold on. Give it 5
okay.
seconds. Give it 5 seconds. I'm going to do that over.
Sure.
I would love to see Jane Lynch in this world, just watching what Eugene Levy did. Now, he didn't like most of the script. Yeah. And he wanted to make up, so I read he wanted to make up most of his own dialogue in here. Did they talk about that in the commentary at all, or no?
No, they didn't really talk about him that much. And I think a lot of it, again, has to do with the fact that the commentary was recorded very much early whenever this movie first came out. Although it did make a massive success right off the bat. I mean, the opening weekend it made 18 million. But they really weren't prepared for what it was going to be. So they didn't really dive too much into that. The scenes with Eugene Levy, everybody in the room was very much on board with the holy crap. Can you believe that we worked with a comedic legend? Which Eugene Levy was a huge comedic legend at the time. I mean, he was in everything Christopher Guest did, and he was just very well known in the comedy circuit, especially if you want to go all the way back to the early 80s and even before that, within the 70s. I mean, he was known as these various different side characters that just really added a nice layer of comedy. If everybody remembers him from Vacation, where he's the one who sells the family truckster, it's just hilarious. So they didn't really talk much about if he wanted to change the script at all, but it does make sense that he was kind of on board with wanting to change things, because if you can see that his reactions where he's just like, now this one is called Shaved. I'm not too familiar with this one, son.
It's like a tropical plant. And like this one focuses more on just walking through those things.
And he's just like kind of looking at you like, hey, big boy.
Oh, what a good scene. And then he covers for his son. I can't normally in a lot of these movies too, where I keep bringing all these films up, but I'm just going to keep doing it. In Idle Hands, you never really meet the parents because they're dead. And then you have Detroit Rock City, the parents are really strict. In this one, you have a really supportive dad. So they're not rallying against terrible people. All these kids seem to have pretty decent home lives, I would say.
Yep.
So it's interesting that there's not that baggage in this either. These are just kids on a mission and they're trying to conquer it. I don't know. I guess I like that. There's a little bit of a heart in there with the dad too. I mean, everyone loves that character. He's been in all 8 of the movies, Eugene Levy.
Oh yeah. He's awesome. I remember whenever I saw that movie, when I saw this movie back in the day, my friend said his only complaint was his dad, Jim's dad, didn't get laid. He said that would have been a funnier end to it. But originally it was supposed to end with Jim going on to Prague and meeting up with Nadia, because I didn't know that was where she was from. I thought she was they just say foreign exchange student. I had no idea that she was from Prague. But he was supposed to end with Jim going to Prague and then meeting up with Nadia at a hotel.
Oh, wow.
But the director said, we couldn't afford to do that, so we opted for the cheapest option, which was Eugene Levy dancing in the hallway.
Gone to his wife.
Yes.
Making his way over there. He's watching the video, and he's like, well, whatever, I get it. It's fine. I have a weird kid. Oh, and then when they first find him in the beginning, where he's looking at the channels and he's like, oh, there's a boob, and then they walk in and he has a sock. And it's better than a sock. It's just so awkward. I love the Jason Biggs saw in the commentary. I also read a bunch of articles about this where Biggs, his manager, was like, listen, Biggs, you're gonna have sex with this pie and you're gonna have sex with that pie like no one's ever had sex with a pie before, because he wanted to be a serious actor. But his manager's like, you get down there and you take care of that pie.
Yeah. He's like, you get it. He's like, well, what if no one watches this? What if, literally this movie does not get made and funding falls through? And he's like, listen, you get in there and you hump that pie.
That makes me so happy. Oh my gosh.
I mean, that's got to be the actor's biggest fears, working on a movie that could go either way. Again, teen sex comedies were really big in the 80s, not so much in the 90s, that they weren't really sought after. So this was the movie that brought it all back. And to be working on it, not sure of where it's going to go or anything. I mean, it's kind of like working on any movie, really. And just going, well, what if no one actually sees this? And I just did all this and this weird stuff just for nothing. And of course, the thought is to do, hey man, just go in there, do it the best you can, and that's all that matters.
Oh man, I had a good point, but I totally forgot it.
Oh jeez.
No, but yeah,
I went rogue again.
I've been wrong. I don't know if you've had this, but I've been working on movies before. I'm like, this is gonna suck, and then I watch it and I love it. So it is tough to really know what you're on. And I've been on movies where everyone thought it was gonna be great, and then it turned out not to be great. So all you know are these little vignettes and scenes, and you're like, how is this gonna be pulled together? How is this gonna work?
Yeah, that's always a thought when you're making a movie, is that there's three ways that a movie is made. And one is whenever you write it, the second time is when you actually shoot it, and then the third time is when you edit it. So you never know.
And also too, another funny thing about this movie is it came out pretty well, and in Germany it beat out Mission Impossible 2 to become the #1 film of 2000 in Germany. They love it.
I gotta say, I wasn't expecting that. But you know, the director does say in the commentary that in Europe the movie didn't do so well with the gross out jokes. It was more the sexual humor that they really liked. And he said in France, that's where they get the biggest laughs, from the sexual humor.
So what, the Germans, like the other people in Europe, like when Jim's super quiet and staring or laughing at Shannon Elizabeth, is that what you're saying? Like the cringe comedy, they didn't like the sex comedy, but then the French love the sex comedy?
No, he said that in Europe in general, but in France it was like above and beyond. But in Europe in general, the sex comedy was actually more than what they thought it was going to be. They thought that it was accepted even more over there.
Wow. This makes me laugh. I would have loved to have seen this in a French pack theater in 2000. Yeah. Watching this.
I bet it would have been great. Oh my gosh.
No, I think it set out a nice template to, I mean, this also kicked off, Road Trip came out, Euro Trip, The Girl Next Door. This is kind of like Scream being responsible for all the meta teenage horror, and then you have this being responsible for all, I mean, granted, there were big films in '99 that were big, though. I mean, She's All That was huge. So, I mean, 10 Things I Hate About... so I think it was just a combination that led to all of those movies being big, I would say.
Yeah, and, as we discussed earlier, that this movie really did kickstart that whole feeling again all these movies to come back. And they had a really heavy reign for a good solid 2 to 3 years. And then the sequel to this came out, and then the comedy scene kind of went to a whole nother direction, which was with Superbad.
Yeah, I mean, American Pie 2, though, and American Wedding, just to pull in $240 million with inflation domestically, and then domestically $162 million for a third film. I mean, this became almost so you watch movies, the horror movies that come out, there's just more and more, and you keep watching them. But this movies and maybe Meet the Parents, those 4 movies maybe gave diminishing returns, but the 4 of them still made bank at the box office. It was a different era, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean the target demographic for those movies is that age where it's like 17 to 22, and that's where you have more of your disposable income as well. So that's your target audience. You're going to want to go see more of those movies whenever they come out. And then, of course, if you have the sequel when you're a little older, like, you know what? I'll spend a couple of extra bucks. I'll go to see that.
And it's interesting. It kind of aged with the people who watched it. So you have American Pie 1 and 2 that they weren't released back to back, but you have end of high school, and then so kids graduate from high school, then they go see this movie with them in the following year, and then you have a wedding maybe from like when you're 24, 25, some of your friends are maybe getting married, and then you have the reunion. So kids our age sort of grew up with these people. It's an interesting way that they spread everything out. It makes me happy.
Yeah, I mean, we all grew up watching these movies, so it was like. Yeah, it was kind of neat. It's kind of neat seeing them every couple of years and checking in to see how it's going, and it was pretty cool.
I'm a major role in one of these movies, Chris Kelly.
I know, American Reunion. I have your autograph. I remember all about it. Go ahead.
Blink and you'll miss it. But I'm a part of the American Pie party scenes. That makes me happy. Now I just got to do Fast and Furious party scenes. I got to find my way into one of those.
I think you could do it. I mean, I think you have the muscles for it, Hoffmeyer. I think you walk in there, just flex and be like, just say like, hey, it's a family thing.
Have some Corona. I brought my own Corona. Well, you can't have that.
And you only drink it with the bottle up in the air, the bottom in the air.
Just you see beer explode in the background. Oh, bar. My best bet would be to go work on it and then be like, hey guys, chuck me into this party.
Yeah.
I want a glory shot of me sitting on a car. Because normally it's just gratuitous shots of women. I would throw me in one, guys. That wouldn't happen.
Oh.
All right, so any final thoughts about this movie? What were some of any other notes? What else you got for me?
Yeah, I would like to give it up for Chris Owen, who played Sherman.
Oh gosh, yeah.
He's really not somebody that folks would probably remember nowadays, but I really remember this guy standing out a lot when I was a younger person. I remember him as kind of like the thin version of Patrick Renna, because if you remember, Patrick Renna was a big name kind of before he did The Sandlot, and he had a very unique look. He had, very chubby cheeks. He was in Son-in-Law. He was from The Sandlot, went to Son-in-Law, and then he moved forward. He did a lot of commercials, but he had a rival, which was Chris Owen, who was basically the skinny version of him. They looked kind of alike, and they had the same vibe to them. They both had the red hair, the freckles, and everything. And he was more known at the time of this movie as that kid from Major Payne. He's in the front cover. Of He's the one who sneezes, and he yeah. He went on to do Angus. He was in Black Sheep, Can't Hardly Wait. He was the kid that kept stealing everything in that movie. That was him. And then later on, he went on to do The Mist, which I think he was way too old to be playing a stock boy in that. But, he was supposed to be playing someone who was supposed to be 18, 19. He was clearly 30. But I thought what was kind of interesting that I just wanted to bring up, that if you remember the cartoon Daria, which was the spin-off of Beavis and Butthead, the character of Upchuck from that,
yeah,
he was almost identical to Sherman. And he was voiced by Jeffrey Aaron, who everybody would remember from the movie Devil. He plays the lawyer. He's in a bunch of different things, but that's the movie I remember him the most as. He was a lot like the character of Sherman. He was very kind of cringy, gross, and he was very like, I'm here to hook up with the girls. But then with Upchuck, it was always that he was, he always got beat up. So that was, I always wondered that, was his character inspired by Upchuck, or did they just kind of pick that character because you got Sherminator, Upchuck, you know what I mean? I don't know, but I just thought that was interesting. I just figured I'd talk about that. And also Jennifer Coolidge, she was very well known at the time in the improv comedy. She had a very short-lived variety show with Roseanne Barr and Kathy Griffin, where it was kind of like Saturday Night Live, but it was all female cast. That only lasted like a season, but she was very big in the improv world prior to making this movie. And, after doing this movie, she went on to do Two Broke Girls, and then she does literally everything like Eugene Levy, anything that Christopher Guest does, she does it as well. So I thought that was kind of cool.
I love her character in Best in Show.
You know what? It's been probably a good 10 years since I've seen that. God.
She just sits there. She's kind of a trophy wife, and she's like, sometimes we talk or don't talk. Sometimes we talk by not talking. And it's just so, she just goes off, and she's hilarious, man. It makes me so happy.
The one I remember the most was I can't even remember the name of the title of it now. The one where it's a movie about making a movie.
Oh, there is so it was Waiting for Guffman, Best in Show, then, oh man, For Your Consideration?
I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
I think that's what but I think she's the producer. You're like, what does a producer do on a movie? She's like, she just stares blankly. I mean, it's just fantastic work all around. The producers on this, they went on to do some amazing stuff afterwards. I know Chris Bender was an associate producer on the Final Destination series. I went on to do the Hangover movies as well. Chris Moore later on was nominated for an Oscar for Manchester by the Sea. He co-produced Good Will Hunting, Joyride, Waiting, and the sequel, and all the Feast movies. Craig Perry also did the Final Destination series as well as the American Pie series, and they're currently working on American Vacation. In case anybody out there was wondering, yes, there is going to be a part 5, and it's called American Vacation. So looking forward to seeing that as well.
I mean, the last one made over 200 million, so why not?
Of course. I mean, where else? These movies, I think that if they come out at the right time every couple of years, they are guaranteed to make money, because there's people like you, people like me that are going to want to see this just because we have that nostalgia feeling for the original and how much fun that we had whenever we saw it to begin with. And then they bring it all back. It's going to be great. Like I loved American Reunion. I thought that was fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to this. Louis G. Friedman was also another producer on that, but he started out all the way back in the 80s as a line producer on Cherry 2000.
Whoa.
Yes, that movie. Not TC 2000, but Cherry 2000. For those of us that aren't really big into B movies, there was a gigantic series of films that came out in the early 80s to the mid 80s, somewhat even into the late 80s, where they were futuristic robots that were just kicking ass and taking names. And Cherry 2000 is no exception, but that was his first movie. He later on went to do Canadian Bacon as a coordinating producer and Jag. Remember that show?
Yeah, Jag. That was on forever.
That was huge show. Then he switched to producing, starting with this movie, then went on to